This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, episode 54, Schappacher Farms Through the Pumpkin Vine, with our guests today, Butch and Bethany Schappacher.
That's when we get that joy and we understand that we're not just providing a service or goods, we're providing an experience for people, and one that a lot of people don't get to find out for themselves or find out for free.
What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, Dustin Pierce. Real Change is a positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news, events, and resources. In our podcast, we interview leaders of local organizations to help squash rumors and foster a greater sense of pride in our community. Today, we have a great episode with local farmers, father and daughter-in-law Butch and Bethany Schappacher, who own Schappacher Farms on 73 here in Wilmington. Butch started his pumpkin business many years ago back in Mason, Ohio, for his daughter as a way to just have something for her class to come to on their field trips. And it grew and grew and grew from there, but eventually they had to sell their farm in Mason. Butch and his wife retired for 2 years, and then just out of the blue, he was driving past the barn that they're at now in Wilmington off of 73 and had a vision for reopening the pumpkin farm. Obviously, he was much older in his life at this time, so he had to talk it over with his son and daughter-in-law, AJ and Bethany, and asked if they wanted to partner with him on this journey. So AJ and Bethany actually live on the property right now in the old farmhouse there, and they opened the farm again. So on the podcast, we'll talk about the process of restoring the barn, the old horse barn on the property, and all the challenges that were involved with that. We also talk about all the fall activities that they have going on right now. I actually got to go visit the farm last weekend with the Chamber of Commerce. We had an event out there. There was food trucks. There was slinging pumpkins off giant slingshots and apple cider and pumpkin pie. And it was just a really good time. So one thing Butch is very passionate about is that the farm has free admission and you can pick pumpkins straight off the vine. So these aren't pumpkins that are just boxed in and put in a field and you go get one. These are blue and green and white and crazy color and crazy sized pumpkins that are grown on the farm. So it's a really neat experience. On this podcast, we also talk about, well, some people may know that Butch actually farms all of the hay for all the animals at the Cincinnati Zoo. That is a rumor that I've heard in the community, but Butch actually talks about the ins and outs of what that looks like on the podcast. So very interesting. You want to stick around for that. And Butch, even though he's not from Wilmington, he is investing in the community and restoring his barn. And he's also on the board of the Visitors Bureau. So really cool how someone from outside of Wilmington can come in and just be really invested in making the community better and preserving what's here as well. So we do get a little bit emotional on the podcast. Bethany shares some of her story, but that's just what makes this podcast real. It's not the fake Change Wilmington podcast. It's the Real Change Wilmington podcast. And we're just humans talking to humans. So I respect both of them for being brave and sharing their stories on our podcast. And I'm really thankful for how they've invested in our community and are helping our community and families to experience local agriculture. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Butch and Bethany Schappacher and get this podcast started. Butch and Bethany Schappacher.
Yes.
Welcome to our podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we're in fall season. We're going to learn about the activities you have going on right now and about the farm in general. But first, let's just start by talking about you guys. So Butch, do you want to start talking about your background and how you got into farming?
I've farmed all my life. I grew up in Mason and grain farmed there for many years. Been doing pumpkins on the Mason farm probably 30 years with pumpkins and field trips and stuff. When my daughter was born, when she was in preschool, we started field trips for her class, and we've done them ever since. And seen a lot of the kids through the years of now you're seeing the kids that came on field trips back with their kids. So that, wow, maybe I've been doing this too long. But I mean, that's how we got into it. Grain farmed, and as crop ground in Mason was being developed, we kind of started this as a side because we knew there wasn't going to be the grain crops there. So we started kind of doing the pumpkins, and we did produce and things, and it just kept growing every year. Actually, the passenger train from Lebanon would stop at the farm in Mason and bring people out every weekend, 3 times on Saturdays, 3 times on Sundays through the fall. And so that's how it really grew, and people found out where we were. And with that many passengers on the train and then to go back and word of mouth and things like that. So that's kind of how it grew when it, as it has. It was my parents' farm, and that when they passed away, we kind of, the farm was going to be sold, and that's when we kind of moved a little bit farther north and just happened to find the farm here in Wilmington and started the pumpkin business back up again.
So your farm in Mason has been sold since?
It has been sold, yes.
Okay. So obviously you have kids. What does your son and daughter do?
My son is, I guess, co-owners with his wife, I guess, on a lawnmower sales and service business in downtown Corwin. And my daughter actually works for Michigan State University in the ag department as a activities coordinator.
Okay. And what do you do for fun now? What are your hobbies?
I don't have a lot of hobbies. This is it.
Yeah.
The farm, and I guess, I've been fortunate enough that it is my hobby. That's where it is. We, during the winter time, people say, what do you do? I haul hay during the winter time. The summertime, I bale hay, and then get into pumpkins, plant the pumpkins. And, November, December, January, February is our slower months. We do go to Florida for a couple of weeks now, just the last couple of years. And that's pretty well it.
You said you also do some farming for the Cincinnati Zoo?
Yes, I've got about 150 acres of hay that we do for the zoo. I've been supplying their hay for about 12 years now with the property in Mason. I was supplying hay before I started farming their ground. And then they came to me and said, hey, we want to grow our own hay on our own ground. What do you need? And I say, a big barn. So they put up a big barn, and that's basically where all my hay equipment is. I've got grain crops there on some of the ground. The rest is hay that we kind of go back and forth with the grain crops and the hay, but I keep about 150 acres of hay that they need. They go through about 15,000 bales of hay a year, and it's all pretty well raised on their property.
So the land is theirs and the equipment is theirs too, or?
No, the equipment's all mine.
Okay. Interesting.
So I've had a great working relationship with the zoo. They're great to work with. They don't know anything about the hay business. They just know they got to have it. They don't worry about it. I mean, it's there when they need it, and everything's up to me. And so it's been a great working relationship.
Do you get backstage access to pet the animals and stuff?
I did get to go in to see Fiona, yes,
yeah,
and feed her.
Nice.
And the new elephant exhibit that's getting ready to open up now. I've been in it. I'm in when the first elephants came and stuff. That the barn's right there, so go in the barn and see them. And actually, that was one of the treats my granddaughter got to go one day with me before they opened it all and stuff. When we got to go through and see it.
That's awesome. So last question about you is, what's a defining moment of your life that's helped make you who you are or shape your values and personality?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I was brought up farming, and that's all I've ever done. And it's not really a job, it's a way of life.
Cool. So let's transition into Bethany.
Sure.
So tell us about your background, how you got connected with the family.
Well, I would definitely say I married into this, but obviously that was by choice. And I mean, my family does have a little bit of background in farming. My great-grandparents actually used to own a dairy farm in Lebanon, and that's actually where the business that my husband and I operate now, that's where that business started from, way back in, I believe it was the 40s. Dairy farms were huge around Ohio, and they started out as a surge milking dealer. So they supplied parts and service sales to farms that had surge milkers.
What's a surge milker?
So it's just the brand of milker that they would use for dairy cows. So once the dairy farm started phasing out, they became then a lawn and garden dealership. We used to be in Lebanon. We were a John Deere dealership, and then that family business got sold, and my father started the business that my husband and I now operate together in Corwin. So, a little bit different of a upbringing than AJ had. I didn't grow up on a farm, but both my parents were, they grew up in the country. My dad more so than my mom, but my mom grew up in rural Morrow, as it is here in Southwest Ohio. So they had a small hobby farm. My mom's family did. But yeah, AJ and I married in 2015, and I was obviously aware of the business that they did, and they were gracious enough to let me work at the counter when they were still in Mason. I was a bank teller, so I was comfortable with a cash register and, waiting on customers and stuff like that. And I just loved what they did. The way that they cater to all the people and treat them like family, I felt like that was really important, and it felt very comfortable to me because my family's business was somewhat the same. So that's just where we started. And after their family farm sold, AJ and I were then married at that point, and I was comfortable living in our small ranch in Lebanon. We'd been married for a year, and then we bought the farm up here in Wilmington after that. So it's just flourished ever since.
So you live at the farm now, right?
Yes. So AJ and I live at the farm. We renovated it for about 6 months maybe until we moved in. We bought it in the summer of 16 and then renovated it for quite a few months and then moved in the wintertime, when we were all slow. So, but yeah, it's an old farmhouse. It was built in, I believe the auditor site says 1862. It's got a lot of character. So it's a big house for our small family of 3, but it's what came on the property, and we'll try and keep it, to the original kind of way it was when we purchased it. Just kind of upgrade and do some things here and there. But yeah, we live there.
So what are some of your hobbies outside of running the farm?
Oh, well, besides working, like Butch said, farming's kind of a way of life, but AJ and I, we really enjoy, my family owns a house at Lake Cumberland, so we enjoy going down there to boat on the weekends during the summertime. Got a really close group of friends that we hang out with a lot. They have kids close to our daughter's age, so just find ourselves comfortable with close friends and family a lot. And I always say that Butch's wife, Sherry, my mother-in-law, she's a great host. Whenever, our friends come into town from out of town, or my brother and sister-in-law, when their friends come out of town, it's always everybody meets up at Butch and Sherry's house. So whether Butch knows it or not, he's the host house. So, but yeah, we really enjoy time with our friends and family when we have it. So
that's awesome. So how did AJ and you meet?
We actually met through a mutual friend of ours. AJ they didn't live far from me, actually. They were only about 5-10 minutes down the road from where I lived, but just the way the school lines were, AJ went to Mason High School and I went to Lebanon. And then he had a mutual friend through 4-H that I was friends with in high school. And she had a gathering at her house before the famous Lebanon horse parade.
Right.
So we met at the horse parade and then started dating a couple months later. So that was our senior year of high school.
Very cool. It's a cute story.
Yes.
So I'll ask you the same question I asked Butch. What's a
Sure.
defining moment of your life that's helped make you who you are or just shape your values and personality?
Oh boy. Sorry.
It's okay.
My dad recently passed away of colon cancer last year. While it wasn't sudden, it was just not something you ever anticipate to happen so quickly, I guess. And he was always the just a quintessential blue collar kind of guy. He grew up pretty poor, I would say, lower middle class probably, and he just worked very hard for the things that he was able to provide for his family. And to see the things that he did by himself just because he had a passion for something. Just like Butch has a passion for farming. To see him grow his business that he did in the short 5 years that he was there owning it in Waynesville. When he passed away, it was tragic, but at the same time, I felt a duty to continue on that passion for him. And I think AJ feels the same way, when it comes to Butch and farming. It's not a tangible thing, but it's just when you realize how much hard work that your parents or somebody that you love put into something, and you watched it grow from this little seed to what it is and to what it can be, you really try and emulate what that person did. And so that's been a defining moment most recently for me. And I think that it's been a defining moment, not so the actual passing of my father, but I think it just signifies the values that AJ and I have as people. And we really realize, like, hey, what your family is doing, what my family is doing, those things matter to us. And those things matter to us moving forward in the future for our family and our kids and our community.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your
Sorry.
loss.
Yeah. I didn't expect to get emotional.
Yeah,
Sorry.
part of it.
It is. So
I'm sure following in his footsteps and keeping his business alive helps that lineage carry on. And
yeah. And you feel like you're, not that anyone ever forgets a loved one when they pass, but it brings up a lot of good memories of him, and customers still come in and they are happy to see his passion and his his memory continue to live even though he's not. So, and like I said, I know those feelings are the same for AJ when it comes to, the farm where we're at now and the pumpkin business, and just always following Butch's footsteps like AJ has. So it's those kind of things that are important to us as family.
how do you think you guys were perceived in the community when you came and you bought the farm, being somewhat of outsiders, and people have a lot of pride in their farms? Like, what was the circumstances of you acquiring that farm, and how have you been able to integrate into the community? I guess is what I'm asking.
Sure. Do you want to answer?
Well, I mean, I could start. It was starting to get pretty run down. It was for sale for a while. It was a horse farm, and I just happened to drive past it, and we were not looking for a place at that time. I know we didn't have a farm. We were out of the pumpkin business a couple of years, and just happened to go by it, and you have a vision of, well, that maybe could turn into something. And it had a barn, it had a house, it was on a state route, so all those things were there. So I mean, we kind of had a vision, and I mean that first year, work on it almost a year before we, it took a lot. We didn't want to tear the barn down and start over. It was a great setting. And so we just started working on it. Horse stalls inside, tore out all the old horse stalls, the oaks, and some of the fences, and cleaned it up to where we got a decent concession stand, shop, whatever you want to call it, inside of it. So it was kind of a vision when you see it that, man, that might work. And so that's kind of how it got started. And people would have people stop in and say, "What are you going to do? We're see you're cleaning up." I said, "Well, we're going to open a pumpkin business back up." And most people were pretty, even the neighbors that was part of it was their parents' farm, was glad to see that something was going into it, and it was going to stay a farm and not a subdivision or anything else. And we heard a lot of that when people came in, that wow, what you've done and how much difference it looks and stuff like that for the community.
I think when you talk about like a farm versus like an agritourism specific farm, we have a lot of different needs than what just like a typical residence and or a typical farm would need. So like he kind of said, it had a barn that took a lot of work, but it could be cleaned out and had a lot of history, had a house where we could live. It had room for parking. It had room, or we were right on a major state route, so a lot of passerbys. So there were a lot of things that we weren't really looking for farm.
No.
But I remember when Butch called and I had seen it. I shouldn't say we weren't looking for a farm.
Sure.
We were, but I don't think we were like, oh yes, we're going to start up the pumpkin business again. It was hey, I think I found the perfect property to start up the pumpkin business again. So I remember when I got the call from Butch and he's like, I think we really need to look at this. And I'm like, I don't know. We just got married. I just got settled in at AJ's house. Like, I'm still kind of in like that honeymoon state of just enjoying life. And I don't know. So it was a lot of work, but it just ended up being the perfect property for us. And I think like he touched on, a lot of the neighbors and surrounding folks were happy to see it not turn into a development, which unfortunately you see a lot of large pieces of property, family farms, et cetera, turning into. So I think most of our neighbors, all of our neighbors, were welcoming to us. And we always say Wilmington's been a great place for us to kind of replant our roots. So we really like that about Wilmington. They've been welcoming to us and they support a lot of what we do. It wouldn't be what it is today without them, for sure.
But we had a lot of following from,
Yes.
It was close enough to Mason and Lebanon that we had a great following from down there for after you're doing it so many years.
Mm-hmm.
So, 71, 20, 25 minutes, you're there on a major highway. And so that was a big thing for us that, yes, it wasn't real close to Lebanon, but 20 minutes away is close.
It's pretty close. And I'm from Lebanon, so
okay.
my father's still there. So it's, to me, pretty close.
Yeah.
It is. So it had a lot going for it at that time.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes, so when I do things in the community anyways, there can be some, I guess, skepticism and questions and stuff. But like, you have to hold fast to your vision because in the end, people like see the end product. I'm like, wow, that's so amazing. But you have to like get through some of the negative stuff.
Yeah.
The questions sometimes. But like I believe it's going to be good. And when you see it, like you're like, wow, like this is great.
Yeah. I think like Butch said, luckily we had a backing or a following of people from Warren County. Yeah. And so although we felt like we didn't have to like convince anyone here, at the same time, we still had a Facebook page operating from the original farm. And when we moved up here, we were at about like 2,500 followers. So it was almost like one of those things like, hey, if you want to see what we're up to. And we did, once we kind of got initially projects underway at the farm, then we started posting just slowly about like, hey, this is what we're up to this week or this month, kind of follow along with the progress, just so it wasn't so new to people. They got to know us.
They were part of the process.
They were, yeah. And they got a little bit invested with us along that journey of about 10 months, I would say, 10, 12 months. So didn't start from zero, but we also felt like we didn't have to convince people of what was to come. So, the old saying, you build it and they will come. Mm-hmm. So we just felt like we can get there. So
yeah, I mean, and we haven't changed a whole lot of stuff from the original farm. That, we always did free A rides, free corn days, had animals out, they had a corn box there, and we don't charge for any of that. We don't charge admission. So, and that was my thing. I wanted to keep it that way. So we still don't. And, a lot of places are admission and things like that. And I don't want to do that. I want them to come enjoy the farm and get a taste of ag and not have to pay for that. Just pay for what they purchase.
Does that bring you a lot of joy to like have that for the community? Obviously it's not, you're not trading for every single thing, so you're not making as much money as you could, but I assume you get a lot of joy out of providing that.
We do, and like I say, you've always got those seasons that are better than others, and they all work out. We've had some really good years up here, and you get really good weather, you get really good crop, and then the next year the weather might not be as good, the crop might not be as good. So I think you just have to stick to what you're used to and what you're true, and I keep saying, if I got to charge admission and stuff like that, that's when we stop doing it.
Mm-hmm. One of our first years up here, I remember this well. The mom, she came in with she had 2 little girls with her, and we were getting ready to close. And typically at the end of our day, we have wagons out, little like plastic wagons for people to take to the field and put pumpkins in, bring them back so they don't have to haul them or carry them. And the little girls, when they were checking out, they both wanted they're called pumpkin zippers, but they're little pumpkin cups, and we put apple juice in them for the kids. They're a huge hit with the kids. And the little girls they both wanted a pumpkin zipper, and the mom said she didn't have money for them. Both of the girls got a small pumpkin and they left. Well, when we were kind of closing up the doors, these 2 little girls came running back with their wagons that were left out in our parking lot. And they just came up. They had huge smiles on their face. And I said, "Thank you so much for helping us." And the mom was like, "We just know that we were here before right when you guys were closing. So I wanted them to come up." And so I told the girls to come into the barn with me, and I gave them both pumpkin zippers. And it's just those small moments when you don't know that could have been those girls' first time at a farm or their only farm experience. And so, it's small things like that where when a farm charges $8, $10, $12 just for a child to come in just to experience a farm atmosphere, I don't know if that mom could have been able to do that for those girls if we weren't there, and that's when we get that joy, and we understand that we're not just providing a service or goods, we're providing experience for people, and one that a lot of people don't get to find out for themselves or find out for free. So it's small moments like those that matter to us.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I was trying really hard to not interrupt you by crying. So. So you guys talk about crops. Are you growing like corn and stuff, or are you just growing pumpkins?
We grow corn. We got to have corn for our corn maze. So, we usually plant, we just rotate each year. We switch back and forth between corn and pumpkins. We planted soybeans, but then we had to have 2 different crops. And so we just switched all the corn. And so, and we don't have the soybeans. We use the corn for the corn maze. And then the next year, that's where our pumpkins will be.
So how many pumpkins are you growing every year?
10 to 12 acres is what we got. And then we got about 10 acres of corn also, 10 to 12 acres of corn, and we just switch back and forth.
Okay. During your remodel, what was the most challenging piece of it?
Ooh, definitely the barn.
Yeah, tearing the old oak horse stalls out. Because when they built them out of regular, not just lumber, it was oak, and 2-inch thick oak that they nailed together, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough getting that tore out, and and then cleaning the barn out itself. When we put concrete in those where the horse stalls were, we put new concrete in so we'd have a nice level place that we could sweep, that we could clean. And then cleaning all the walls and underneath the hayloft, we cleaned those all off and actually put metal on the ceiling so we would have a clean place to put our concessions. And then the wall also, we put board up on the walls to make it that we could clean.
Yeah. I think I don't know. How old do you think that barn is?
I mean,
The main beams of the barn have wood pegs.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, if I had to guess, late 1800s?
late 1800s.
Yeah. So house was first, then barn. But when you're tearing those things out, you're also trying to preserve what's there and, structurally what you need. But you're also trying to make space and room for not just current or going to be like our first season, but for seasons down the road. So that's the other thing is, planning ahead too. So I think it was after our second season, we put a pavilion off of the back of the barn to give people more of an area, picnic style tables, just as a shaded spot for people to sit, relax, eat, those kinds of things that we just couldn't do the first couple of years. So a lot of it's been in phases, but yeah, definitely. I remember Butch coming out of that barn after tearing pieces of oak out, and he's like, "I don't want to see another oak board again." So that was definitely probably the most taxing part of the remodel.
To get it ready to be clean and put the metal in and stuff like that for the concessions because it's still an old barn.
Yep.
And we still use the hay mile for hay for the animals.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough to get cleaned up and get all the old stuff out, the new stuff in, but not go too deep that you're tearing down everything. And, you always run into an old barn like that to where your main supports are rotted off. And when you start pulling boards off the wall and you find the main beams are rotted, and then you start getting into them and redoing those. And, we're not done. We still got more to go. And, as boards start, getting loose on the side and nails rust off and boards start slipping, and you dig out of that and replace new stuff, and the barn looks the same still.
Yep.
So it's still an ongoing project then?
There's always. Yeah. I mean, you get a barn that's built in the late 1800s out of wood, those things rot away.
Mm-hmm. And is the barn where you guys have like your venue too, like for weddings and stuff?
Yes. So we have hosted a wedding at the farm. The buffet, the food was set out in the barn, and along with the cocktail hour was on the backside of the barn in the pavilion. Their wedding was pretty substantial. I want to say it was around like 250 people. So they did rent a tent, and the reception area was under the tent. But yes, we have hosted other events in the barn or in the pavilion, attached to the barn. So that is where a lot of our bigger events happen. We do after hours, after we close to the public during the fall. We also offer private bonfire events, with it being so dry right now, although it's been raining the last 24 hours. But I don't know if bonfires will happen this year, but people can rent the farm, and they do have private access to the farm after hours. And that also happens, within the barn and the pavilion itself. So
the bonfires are inside the barn?
No.
I was going to say like...
No. They have access to our concessions within their private group. So we've hosted parties, we've hosted scout groups,
church youth groups, groups. We got a big fire ring that we put out back.
Yeah, out back, not in the barn. So, but yes, all that. The barn is our main hub of just movement and stuff throughout the season. So,
and do you have a staff of people that work with you too, or is it just the family?
We don't employ anybody year-round. Butch is that year-round employee when it comes to farm stuff. But we do have hired help during the fall season. We typically range from about 4 to 6 people. A lot of them are local college or high school kids. A lot of them do help us pick. They help us run the registers during the season. They help us run food back behind the counter during the season. And then they also help us run some of the activities that we offer during the fall as well. So, but they're just seasonal folks to us.
Are they students who are involved with agriculture in any other way, like 4-H?
Yes.
College?
Typically, a lot of our connections are through 4-H, or we actually have 2 students from Wilmington College right now that work for us, and they're both in the ag program. So we like to find people that have an interest in ag, but it's definitely it's not mandatory. And we just, surprisingly or not, it's hard to find younger kids or younger adults that want to work in more of like a farm or agricultural setting. So sometimes our options are thin. So I don't know if when I was 16 I'd want to go work on a farm either, but then again,
It's just weekends, just
Yeah.
Saturdays and Sundays, and then
Yeah.
during the week we do have there's 1 or 2 that come out during the week. Certain days if we got a big order to pick or something like that.
mhm.
But I mean the college, you can find a few kids in the college that are willing to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. My brother's girlfriend used to work at it's a farm in Lebanon. It's like an apple farm, but
Irons
it's
Fruit
not,
farm?
so that is an apple farm, but it's not that one. It's like it has an acronym. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's past Walmart. Like you go, I want to say it's acres, but I don't really know.
Windy Acres? No, that's up here.
They have like a winery, maybe
Hidden Valley.
Hidden Valley.
Oh, HVO.
HVO.
HVO,
Yeah.
Hidden
Hidden
Valley.
Valley.
Yeah.
Have you been there ever?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. We can edit this out. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean
Yes.
it used to be just an apple,
Yeah.
just an apple place, and now they're into a lot of
It seems like upscale, like kind of
yes,
bougie a little bit. Not
yes.
in a good way. Like it's in a fun, like hip way, like.
Right. They have a lot of different offerings than
Yeah.
than
No, I
what
mean
we
they got their
do.
liquor license and,
Right.
and
Yes.
do a lot of stuff like that they I think that's recent since the other guy, well, I can't remember his name anymore, but since he got out of it and they a new person or sold or they took it over, more heading that way.
It's more like heading like the direction of like Young's Farm or it's Young's Dairy.
It's on
kind of
40,
commercialized.
on
it's like,
48,
real
yeah.
commercialized. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
It, just north of Lebanon.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about like what you offer yet. So like activity wise during the season, you have a lot of things you do. Can you kind of run through some of them?
Yep. So like Butch said, we do offer, there's no admission charge, and then we offer free hayride, free corn maze. We have a corn box that younger kids like to play in. Think a sandbox, but with corn. We have a straw room. It's more of like open play. So there's 3 tire swings in there. There's a seesaw made out of what do you call this?
Wire spool.
Oh, yeah, a large wooden
Teeter-totter.
spool.
Mhm.
There's a teeter-totter in there. We have different animals that folks can feed and visit with between a fence.
What
So
animals do you have?
So we have 3 Highland cows.
I saw that on the website. Did you actually have those? That's really cool.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
have 3 Highland cows, we have 3 miniature donkeys, and then we have 3 goats. And the Highland cows are somewhat newer. Well, they are new to us. They are miniature or mid-size Highland cows, so they're not as large as what they typically are. So they're a little bit of a fancier breed. And then they just had our female Clarabelle. She just had a baby back in the spring, Poppy, that made 3. And then we have large like yard games for folks to play out in the yard with. We have slingshots where people can shoot pumpkins off with the slingshots. We have a play set, a swing set. We have a small, basically a miniature farmhouse for kids to play in. It matches the house that's there and matches our house, but it's got all sorts of just stuff for younger kids to play in as well. So am I missing anything?
Basketball wagon.
Yes, the grain bin basketball. So Butch converted a old grain bin into a basketball kind of competition. So it's got 2 hoops and people can play,
That's cool.
back and forth between each
Nice.
other, and then it brings the ball right back down to them out of the chute. So don't think I'm missing any.
Straw slide that we just put
Yes.
together.
We just added a slide this year, a giant slide outside. So that was AJ's, my husband's project. And I'm sure knowing him, it's going to get bigger and larger every year. So
Is there like a big tube inside of it or something?
it's not a tube, it's open. So it's just a flat slide.
We have big straw bales that we stacked on top of one another so the
kids can climb up.
They love to climb on straw bales.
Yep.
So they can climb on the straw bales and then go back down the slide when they to get down it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we grow a lot of different kinds of pumpkins, and I think that's what, a lot of other places, if you stop and look at the number of pumpkin places across 73 that there is, but I say we grow our own, and we grow probably 30 or 40 different varieties. I haven't even count them all, of not just plain pumpkins. We do from the giant ones, the Atlantic giants, to the typical jack-o'-lantern ones, to the pie pumpkins, to the mini pumpkins. And then we've got probably 8 or 10 different varieties of white pumpkins, and then the gourds and squash from all different stacking pumpkins, the white ones, the blue ones, the orange ones, the Hubbard squash, the butternut squash. I came in Cushaw squash. And like I say, I'm missing a bunch of them, but we grow a lot of all the different varieties. And that's what, people, they come out. Yes, we have some up in the yard of the different varieties, but they go to the field and they find their own, pick it off of the stem of the different varieties that's out there. So, that's one of the biggest things that, people say, that you can go pick what you want and just to see all the different stuff that you come across. And I kind of mix it up when we plant it. And, there could be minis, there could be giant pumpkins, there could be squash, all in the same field that I try to separate it some, but then some of it I'll plant together too. So they find a mixture of it.
I think that's one thing that separates us from other similar businesses is we encourage people to go out to the field. I put on our website and I'll post frequently on our Facebook page. Make sure you got clothes on that you don't care to get dirty in. You got boots on, because if you want the pumpkin picking experience, you will get it with us. So you will get dirty and you will get sweaty probably, even if it's 55 degrees, but you will enjoy it, and you will find that a lot of places don't offer that kind of experience. So it's really, that's another thing of like who we are is, we want people to go and do those things because we know that those opportunities aren't as prevalent as they used to be. So that's important to us as well.
I think those kind of things make like growing up a bit magical too. So I remember going to like Windy Acres, I believe, in Lebanon, kind of. I think it's 73 and like whatever that other road is. And I remember growing up and going on their hayride. I could go pick a pumpkin, but I go back now with my nephews and they don't let you pick pumpkins anymore. You have to like just drive past the pumpkin patch and you go pick them up at the front. And it's like that was part of like the magic of that experience, is going to pick it for yourself.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't like on the vine like you guys do, it was still in the field. But they took that away too.
So
that's why when the school kids come out, we get on a hayride and we go to the pumpkin patch and they pick their own pumpkin off of the vine.
Yeah, they pick a small pie pumpkin and they get to take it home and they can tell their parents or, their loved ones, I picked this pumpkin. And they did. They went and they harvested it themselves. So
some of them get ones this big and some of them want, bigger ones. But, we try to limit those to the pie pumpkins that they can handle. And, most of the teachers appreciate that they're not
carrying 10 other kids' pumpkins the rest of the field trip. But.
So, I think it is an experience that they get to pick their own pumpkin, that they're not just picking it out of a bin somewhere or off the ground, and to know how they really grow in the vines. And a lot of times I will try to find a long vine that don't have pumpkins on and show them how long the pumpkin vines really grow. And some of them really, they're 30 foot long or better.
Yeah.
Have you ever competed with pumpkins?
No. No, I don't.
That takes a lot of babysitting, actually.
We don't
It
have the
does.
time to
Yes.
those people babysit those pumpkins.
They're dedicated.
From the time that they put them in the ground. Some of them even put heat tapes in the ground to warm the ground early enough to get them planted, and put covers over them.
And then they, which I just sent to them in a video. It was a TikTok, but they like artificially inseminate the pumpkin.
Yeah.
So they'll find, the male, and then they'll find the female, and they will, they will make their own little pumpkin babies in hopes of having great success. So
I didn't need to know that.
I know. So the birds and the bees of pumpkin growing. So real committed.
Yeah. Wow. So have you been to the Pumpkin Fest is it Circleville?
Circleville.
Okay.
I have not.
I've been once.
Yeah.
Okay.
The year that we were kind of out of the pumpkin business.
They had time to go for once.
We got to go, and it's an experience.
Yeah, it's fun.
But those people that compete in those things, they got a lot more time than because I don't get the time that I like to have with the pumpkins because I'm doing hay at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to worry about 12 acres of pumpkins, not just 12 plants. So that's
right.
Yeah, that's a big undertaking. So we'll leave the giant growing to somebody else. So we admire it, but.
So what keeps you passionate about what you do, and why is it important for the community, do you think?
Like I said earlier, I think it's important to have a place for people to experience the ag or farm lifestyle. I think it's important for us to continue to be able to welcome people to our farm, even if it is just for 6 weeks out of the year, and really 12 days, 6 weekends. But those experiences can help someone. You never know. They might realize, hey, I'm interested in this. This is something that maybe I want to look more into as, I get older, or just to give someone that opportunity to show their kids, hey, this is where not all of their food comes from us, but this is how all your food is grown. Somewhere, whether it's here in Southwest Ohio or somewhere else in the United States, your food is being grown on farms just like this. And if not, much bigger farms. So I think it's important for people to know that those grassroots happen even here in little rural Wilmington, Ohio. And so for me, that's my passion of keeping this going and then continuing the legacy that Butch and Jerry started way back in 1996. So.
How old is your kiddo?
She's 4.
And does she get to participate in any of this stuff?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Oh yes.
So she, great timing on our part. She was born in October of 2019. She was born that year. She was born the last Friday of our season. So we missed one weekend. I was out working the registers all the way through 39 and a half weeks pregnant. But yeah, we call her our Walmart greeter. So anytime someone comes into the barn, especially if they have a little one with them close to her age, she is very welcoming to people. And she really she loves pumpkin season. She knows when it's getting close, and it's almost a daily conversation. Mommy, when does pumpkin season start? In a couple days. Mommy, when does pumpkin season start? 2 more sleeps. Mommy, what are we doing today? It's pumpkin season. And she just lights up. So that is a very special thing to be able to raise a child on a farm, and for her to, at least currently, enjoy the atmosphere and enjoy what we're doing with us. So she's not working as hard as we are, but she still enjoys it just like we do.
And your guys' farm is pretty close to the city, so she gets kind of a taste of both worlds almost if she wants to, hang out in town or on a farm.
Yes.
So she'll have options as she grows up, I guess.
Yes, she does. So, like I said, it's far and few people have this opportunity, and we don't take that for granted. And whether she wants to do this in 30 years, hopefully we'll be, still have the family farm and she can make that choice then, or, and if she doesn't, but hopefully she still appreciates that lifestyle and the way she grew up. That's important to us for sure.
And Butch, what keeps you passionate about doing this?
Well, I think it's a way of life, for one thing. And, you go through the seasons and, you get done one season and, you're right into another season. And, I go from doing hay one day, and I finished baling hay like the middle of September, and it went from that into getting everything ready to go for pumpkins. So, it just goes from one season to another. And the passion, you see people enjoy it and they come year after year. And, and I think people really look at that as it is a way of life. Most people, I'm not sure, should I say most people, but most people think that, they're not doing it just for the money part of it, that they, it's a passion that they got and, wanting to share with the community. So, you get it both ways, but there is those people and you see those people, and that's what makes it worthwhile, that, those people see that it's not just about the money. It's the passion and what you got for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like when you sold your farm, probably could have just retired right then and there, but you got back into it. So,
So
we didn't have to get back into the pumpkin business.
yeah.
So, but I think was it 2 summers we were out of it?
Yes. I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was. It was 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And I think that says something for Butch and Sherry and what they started when they were done, even though it really wasn't by choice, they missed it. Just like other people within the community missed them, they missed it as well. So when that opportunity came about to purchase another farm and kind of start over, it wasn't, hey, we're starting this at the age of 35, 40. We're starting this much later in life. So do you guys want to come along with us? Because if not, then we'll just hang up our hats and that's that. So, they wanted to make sure that what they were going to start up here in Wilmington would see just as long of a succession that they had at the old farm. So
I was 63 at that time.
Yeah, because this is season number 7. Yeah, here.
So I could have just said, no, I ain't doing it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a way of life.
It is. Yep.
All right. What is a quote or piece of wisdom that's helped guide you that you would want to share with other people or pass along to other people? It could be a recent thing or a distant thing.
It's probably cliche, especially coming from a farm, but you reap what you sow. Yes, but I think that is so important. I think that emulates a lot of what we do. Is we aren't trying to make $1 million off of what we do. We're trying to share our passion and share our property and share really a piece of Wilmington with the community. And if we make a couple dollars along the way, that's great. And there will be good things that come out of this every day, every year, every season. So I just hope that people find what they're passionate about, just like we have, and they can share it with others. Because that's the beauty of all this, is we get to share it with everybody else. So
they kind of set the tone too for the community,
right?
As people who are wanting to be giving and
yeah. Wilmington's been a rural community for much, much longer than we have been here. In a lot of places in Southwest Ohio, it's those family farms and larger pieces of property are dwindling. So we're trying to save the all-American, facade of family farms, and we're trying to preserve a small piece of Wilmington so it's there for lots of people to enjoy for years to come.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important to maintain the charm of the community.
Yeah.
And that's when after we were up here a couple of years, they came to AJ, I don't know who it was, and wanted somebody to be on the Visitors Bureau. And AJ said, I don't have time to do that. talk to my dad. He'd love to do that. So I do like to be involved in the community. So I am on the Visitors Bureau board here and enjoy it. I mean, I you learn about the community and things like that. So it's been good.
Bouncing off of what he said, we just didn't want to like move in, plan ourselves, and then was like, hey, come to our farm. We wanted to get involved in the community as well. So Butch is involved on the Visitors Bureau. I'm on Clinton County Farm Bureau board. So we really try and make sure that not only are we adding or providing something to community, but we're getting back from it as well. And we're making sure that we're involved and we're not just in our little bubble of 48 acres on State Route 73, that we care about what's going on outside of our home and outside of our business. So, and we try and just stay involved from a lot of aspects. So
we had Susan Valentine in the podcast a while back, and she's the, I guess, director at the Visitors Bureau.
Yeah.
Do you have a quote or piece of wisdom that you want to share?
I really don't.
Just work hard.
Yeah. I mean, and I've always had a vision, and usually even like I'm on a 4-H camp board also, and whatever I'm involved in, I'm involved in. I'm not just on a board to take up a spot. And I think that's what, one of the biggest things when you got a passion for something, don't just take up that spot, but show that you got a passion for it and, do something. And I that's what we've done with the farm is, we just didn't do it to be there and have a business and take out of the community. You got to get back to the community. And that's always the way it's been with me. If you're into something, you're into it 100%. And that's kind of the way I feel about things.
It's a good piece of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Last question is, what would be a positive, real change in our community?
I think there's a lot going on in Wilmington that people don't really realize, that people are trying to make a difference in Wilmington. And I think you can see that even with the Visitors Bureau, with some of the new businesses that's coming into town. The food truck thing in Wilmington is really big right now. I think is a very positive thing for the city. And so, I think there's a lot going on in Wilmington. I know there's some new building going on. There's new businesses coming in there. And, it's not just a sleepy little town. That I think it's starting to get some revive to it, that there is some change going on.
Mm-hmm. I think supporting the businesses that are here and current is important, but also being welcoming to new businesses and new ideas and kind of just moving forward as a city as a whole. We are some of the newer folks in town, so to say, and what we received from the community when we came in was great. And so we hope that is shown to anyone else who comes in and wants to provide a service to people or provide, retail or food, whatever it is. We just hope that everyone is welcome to new people and hopefully that they appreciate, what is going on in Wilmington and the revival of the city, like Butch was talking about, because that is really important. What brings one person in might be something different than what somebody else comes into town for. So it's appreciating everything that Wilmington has to offer. That's important to us. And I think that is where the real change of Wilmington takes place, is when you start accepting what is current, but also what's to come in the future. So
I like that.
Yeah.
So people want to get in touch with you to learn more. How would they best do that?
Best way to get in touch with us is through our Facebook page. which is Schappacher Farms, Pumpkins, and Farm Market. I'm sure if you just start typing in Schappacher on Facebook, it'll come up, but that's the best way. Or our website is a huge resource for us. Lots of frequently asked questions are answered on there. Our website is www.schappacherfarm.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us. And I typically do the behind the scenes stuff. So sometimes when we're busy during the shop on the weekends, it may take me a little while to get back to people, but I try and do a good job at returning messages and emails in a timely manner. So we don't have a PR person for that.
Whoever wants to grab that in that day.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast, and thank you for what you do in our community.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks so much.
Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Butch and Bethany Schappacher, the Schappacher Farms in Wilmington off of 73. If you have more questions for them or want to get in touch, please reach out to them on their Facebook page, website, or just visit their farm during the fall season. They have a lot of great stuff going on there. You definitely want to check it out. If you want to get in touch with Real Change Wilmington, you can reach us on our website at realchangewilmington.com. Visit our Facebook page, our Instagram pages, or even grab a free copy of our local newspaper at Kroger, Sam's Meats, and Fiesta Veracruz. We send our newspaper direct mail to over 2,500 Wilmington residents. So if you want to help us cover our print costs and advertise your business, event, or a job posting, please email us at advertise@realchangewilmington.com. With that, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce. Keep it real, Wilmington.